Gold D. Roger, the king of the pirates, left behind a legacy that sparked the Great Pirate Era, but he also left behind a son whose potential was snuffed out before it could ever truly ignite. We all remember the tragedy of Marineford. We remember the hole in the chest, the tears of a brother, and the Vivre card burning away into ash. Ace died young, reckless, and before he could ever master the terrifying blood that ran through his veins. But what if that day on Bonaro Island went differently? What if the pressure of the darkness didn't break the Fire Fist, but instead forged him into something stronger? To understand how the world breaks, we have to go back to that fateful duel. The sun was beating down on Bonaro Island, but a different kind of heat was brewing. Ace had finally tracked down the traitor, Marshall D. Teach, the man who killed Thatch, the man who spat on the Whitebeard name. In the original timeline, this is where Ace's arrogance cost him everything. He relied too much on his Logia intangibility, unaware that the Yami Yami no Mi was the one absolute counter to his existence. The darkness swallowed the light, Ace was captured, and the gears of the Paramount War began to turn. But in this timeline, something shifts in the atmosphere. As Blackbeard laughs, his darkness spreading out like a spilled inkwell covering the town, Ace feels a type of fear he hasn't felt since he was a child in the Gray Terminal. It's the fear of total helplessness. When Teach uses Black Vortex, pulling Ace in and nullifying his flame, that punch to the gut doesn't just break Ace's ribs, it shatters his worldview. He realizes in that split second of agony that he is weak. He realizes that if he loses here, he isn't just failing himself, he is handing the name of Edward Newgate over to the mud. Teach grabs him by the throat, the darkness nullifying the fire, and grins with those missing teeth, telling Ace that the era of Whitebeard is over and that the sun must set for the darkness to rise. That specific sentence triggers something primal deep within Ace's soul. The blood of the Pirate King isn't something that accepts submission. As the darkness begins to crush his neck, Ace's vision blurs. But instead of seeing his life flash before his eyes, he sees Luffy. He sees Pops. He feels the weight of the promise he made to never run away. The desperation forces his haki to spike. We know Ace possesses Conqueror's haki, though he rarely used it consciously. In this moment of life and death, his Conqueror's spirit clashes violently with the suppression of the dark fruit. The air around them begins to crackle. Teach's eyes widen. He feels resistance. The darkness that was choking the fire suddenly starts to burn. This shouldn't be possible. Darkness absorbs everything, but fire, real fire, the kind that burns at the core of a star, cannot be smothered. Ace screams, not in pain, but in pure fury. The flames don't just come out of his body. The ground beneath Teach's feet turns white hot. The buildings around them don't just catch fire, they vaporize. This isn't just the Mera Mera no Mi anymore. This is an awakening. The environment itself becomes a crucible. The darkness trying to absorb Ace is suddenly repelled by a heat so intense it distorts the very air, creating a mirage effect that makes Ace look less like a man and more like a deity of flame. Teach lets him go, howling in pain as his hand, the hand that was nullifying Ace, is scorched black. He stumbles back, confused. The darkness usually wins. It's gravity. It's absolute. But Ace is hovering now, his flame shifting from their usual orange-red to a blinding spiritual white-blue. He has turned the entire island into his domain. He looks at his own hands, realizing that the fire isn't just something he produces. It's something he is commanding on a molecular level. He has bypassed the limitations of a standard Logia. Blackbeard, realizing the situation has turned, tries to use his ultimate move, Black Hole, attempting to crush the entire island into nothingness to take Ace down with him. He screams that darkness is infinite. Ace responds calmly, his voice echoing with a new, terrifying authority, stating that even the deepest darkness disappears when the sun is directly overhead. Ace unleashes a new technique, Prime Flame Emperor. It's not just a ball of fire, it's a condensed star. He hurls it not at Teach, but at the center of the gravitational pull. The explosion is blinding. It doesn't just burn, it pushes. The force of the awakening counteracts the gravity of the darkness. Teach is blasted backward, his darkness stripped away by the sheer intensity of the light. He crashes into the ruins of the Bonaro Hotel, burned, broken, and terrified. He looks up at Ace, who stands amidst the blue flames, and for the first time, the traitor feels the fear of death. Ace walks over to the defeated traitor. He has the chance to kill him right there. The rage is boiling in his blood. Thatch's face is in his mind. But as he looks at the pathetic, groveling figure of Blackbeard, Ace remembers Whitebeard's rule. The crime is betraying the family. The punishment is judgment by the captain. Ace doesn't kill him. He knocks him unconscious. shackles him with the sea prism stone handcuffs that Blackbeard ironically had prepared for capturing Luffy, and drags his heavy body to the shore. This single decision changes the entire course of history. Because Ace wins, he is never handed over to the Marines. Because he is not handed over to the Marines, no execution date is set. The newspaper headlines the next morning don't read, "Fire Fist Ace captured." They read, "Whitebeard commander decimates Bonaro Island. Traitor Marshal D. Teach captured. The world stands still." The Marines, who were secretly hoping for a catalyst to start a war with Whitebeard, are left without their trigger. Sengoku slams his fist on his desk in Marineford, realizing their chance to end the era of piracy has slipped through their fingers. Garp breathes a sigh of relief so heavy it almost collapses his lungs, eating his rice crackers with tears in his eyes, knowing his stubborn grandson survives another day. Back in the New World, on the Moby Dick, the mood is jubilant but serious. Ace returns, tossing the battered body of Blackbeard onto the deck. The commanders are shocked. They see the burns on Ace, the exhaustion in his eyes, but they also sense a shift in his presence. He feels different. He feels dangerous. Whitebeard looks at his son, sees the white-hot intensity of his aura, and laughs that booming laugh, realizing the brat finally stepped into the shoes of a true monster. Teach is dealt with according to the Iron Rule, imprisoned or executed by the crew, his plans for world domination ending as a footnote in history. He never becomes a warlord. He never breaks into Impel Down. He never gets the Quake fruit. But for Ace, the victory feels hollow. He looks at his hands and realizes how close he came to dying. He realizes that if he hadn't awakened in that split second, he would be dead, and Pops would be grieving. The arrogance of Logia invincibility is gone, replaced by a cold, hard determination. He asks Marco to train him, not just in fighting, but in hockey. He needs to master this awakening. He needs to master Conqueror's hockey. He tells Marco that he never wants to feel that helpless again. He wants to be strong enough to make sure no one ever threatens his family. While the Straw Hats are navigating the first half of the Grand Line, unaware of how close they came to losing their brother, Ace begins a hellish training regimen in the New World. He isn't satisfied with being a commander anymore. He wants to reach the pinnacle. He starts hunting down stronger opponents, testing his awakening against ancient beasts and New World veterans. His bounty skyrockets from 550 million to over $1 billion in a matter of months. He is no longer just Roger's son or Whitebeard's commander. He is becoming an emperor-level threat in his own right. Meanwhile, without the interruption of the Marineford War, the timeline for the Straw Hats shifts slightly. Luffy still punches a celestial dragon at Sabaody. Kuma still separates the crew because they are too weak for the New World. Luffy sees the news of Ace's victory and his rising bounty, and instead of grief, he feels a burning rivalry. His big brother is getting way too far ahead. This motivates Luffy's training with Rayleigh even more. He isn't training to heal a broken heart, he's training so he can stand equal to the sun god that Ace is becoming. 2 years pass. The world is different. Whitebeard is still alive, though his health is failing. The balance of the three great powers remains, but it is fragile. The Marines are getting desperate, building new weapons, the Seraphim project potentially accelerating, because they missed their chance to decapitate the Whitebeard pirates. And in the shadows of Wano, Kaido sits, drinking, bored, waiting for a war that never came, unaware that a fire is coming to burn down his dragon scales. Ace, now 22 years old, stands on the bow of the Moby Dick. He has mastered the White Flame. He can cloak his strikes in advanced Conqueror's hockey. He is in his prime. But a message arrives from a contact in the underworld. It's about a rubber boy causing chaos in Big Mom's territory, and a brewing storm in a closed nation called Wano. Ace remembers the promise he made to a little girl named Tama years ago. He remembers telling her he would come, back when she was a bewitching kunoichi. He adjusts his orange hat, the skull necklace clinking against his chest. He turns to Marco and the ailing Whitebeard. "Pops," he says, his voice steady and deep, "my little brother is heading into the Dragon's Den, and I made a promise to a girl in that country a long time ago. It's time I go fulfill it." Whitebeard grins, hooked up to his medical machines, but looking proud. "Go, brat. Show that lizard what the Whitebeard family is made of." Ace jumps onto his striker boat, propelled by flames that now burn so hot they turn the ocean water to steam instantly. He isn't going to Wano to die. He is going to Wano to remind the world why the name D is feared by the gods. The reunion between the brothers is imminent, but this time, Ace isn't the victim to be saved. He is the cavalry. The waters surrounding Wano are treacherous, a natural fortress meant to keep intruders out. But for a man made of fire, the rules of nature are merely suggestions. Ace's striker cuts through the violent currents, propelled by a controlled blast of his awakened flames. He doesn't need the koi fish to pull him up the waterfall. He crouches, his eyes glowing with that intense spiritual blue light, and with a single explosive burst, he rockets the small boat straight up the vertical cascade. He breaches the top, landing in the waters of Wano just as the fire festival is underway. But Ace isn't here to celebrate. He sees the dark clouds swirling over Onigashima. He smells the ozone of lightning and the metallic scent of blood. His observation haki, now honed to see seconds into the future, picks up a familiar chaotic energy signature crashing into the Skull Dome. Luffy is already there. On the live floor of Onigashima, the raid is descending into chaos. The samurai are struggling. Queen and King are wreaking havoc. Marco the Phoenix arrives first, kicking the Big Mom Pirates ship back down the waterfall, just like in the original timeline, but this time, he isn't alone. He flies over the battlefield, his blue flames healing the samurai, and shouts to the rooftop, "I brought some backup, yoi!" Suddenly, the temperature in the Skull Dome spikes. It's not the heat of a burning building, it's the dry, oppressive heat of a desert at noon. The ice Oni virus that Queen unleashed begins to melt instantly. The samurais look up, confused. A massive pillar of white fire erupts from the lower floors, blasting a hole straight through the ceiling of the performance hall. Standing amidst the inferno, twirling his hat, is Pork SD Ace. The silence that follows is deafening. The beast pirates freeze. They know the face. They know the bounty. 1,500,000,000 berries. The Flame Emperor. Yamato, who is running through the halls trying to protect Momonosuke, stops dead in her tracks. Her mask falls from her hand. Tears well up in her eyes, not of sadness, but of disbelief. The man who promised to return, the man who broke her chains metaphorically years ago, is actually here. She screams his name, her voice cracking with emotion. Ace spots her, flashes that signature grin, and shouts, "Yo, Yamato! Sorry I'm late, but there's no time for a tearful hug yet." Ace looks up. Through the hole he just blasted, he sees the dragon form of Kaido circling the rooftop, and a tiny rubber figure bouncing around. His face hardens. "Marco, handle the calamities. I'm going up." With a burst of fire, he launches himself into the sky, a streak of white light piercing the gloom of the storm. On the rooftop, the situation is dire. The worst generation, Luffy, Law, Kid, Zoro, and Killer, are barely holding their own against two emperors. Big Mom and Kaido are a wall of insurmountable power. Luffy is panting, beaten, but refusing to stay down. Kaido laughs, preparing a blast breath to incinerate the rubber captain. Is this the best you can do, Straw Hat? Just as the beam of destructive heat leaves Kaido's mouth, a wall of white flames intercepts it. The collision creates a shockwave that rattles the entire island. The dust clears, and Ace stands in front of his little brother, his back turned to him, blocking an Emperor's attack with a single hand wreathed in advanced armament haki. Luffy's eyes pop out of his head. He rubs them, thinking he's hallucinating from the concussion. Ace? Ace looks back over his shoulder. "You've gotten stronger, Luffy, but you still need your big brother to watch your back, huh?" The dynamic of the fight shifts instantly. It is no longer 5 rookies against 2 monsters. It is the Pirate King's son and the future Pirate King standing side by side. Big Mom frowns. She remembers Roger. She sees the resemblance in Ace's eyes. Not the fear, but the demon. Kaido shifts back to his hybrid form, swinging his club. Thunder Bagua! Ace doesn't dodge. In the original Marineford, Ace was burned by Akainu because magma is hotter than fire. But this is Prime Ace. His fire has transcended. He meets Kaido's club with a Fire Fist Purgatory. The clash of haki splits the sky, not unlike when Whitebeard clashed with Shanks. Black lightning dances with white fire. Ace is pushed back, sliding across the roof, but he is unhurt. He grins, wiping blood from his lip. So this is the strongest creature? Not bad. The battle that ensues is legendary. Luffy enters Gear 4 Snake Man, attacking with speed, while Ace controls the environment. Every time Kaido tries to use his wind scythes or lightning, Ace counteracts it with heat manipulation, creating vacuums in the air to nullify the attacks. They fight in perfect sync, a brotherhood forged in the jungles of Mount Corvo, now displayed on the world stage. Then, the moment happens. Luffy is knocked unconscious, his voice vanishing. The drums of liberation begin to beat. Joy Boy returns. Gear 5 awakens. Ace watches in awe as his little brother transforms into the sun god Nika, laughing maniacally and turning the ground into rubber. Ace realizes then that he isn't the sun. He never was. He is the fire that guides the way for the sun. He smiles, accepting his role. "All right, Luffy, let's finish this." Kaido, now facing a literal god and a flame emperor, decides to end it with his strongest move. Rising Dragon, Flame Bagua. He becomes a giant dragon of magma. He intends to melt them both. Luffy prepares his massive Bajrang gun, a fist the size of an island. But Ace adds his own power to the mix. He activates his Awaken technique, Solar Crown. He compresses all the fire in the atmosphere into a halo around Luffy's giant fist. It's a combination attack that has never been seen in history. Rubber coated in Haki, coated in the hottest flames of the Mera Mera no Mi. Gomu Gomu no Red Rock Gatling, Prominence. They strike Kaido together. The magma dragon is overwhelmed not just by the force, but by a heat that exceeds magma. He is blasted deep into the earth through the crust of Wano, defeated not by a single hero, but by the unbreakable bond of brothers.